I'd ask you to think about these 6 or 7 questions. Do you know what is a hormone? And what is a pheromone? What is a cycle? And what is the annual cycle? Who knows what how many days are in the annual cycle? 365 days. And do you know what causes it to be 365 days? Does anybody know that? Very good. It takes the Earth, not the Earth's rotation, it takes the Earth that many days to rotate around the sun one time, every 365 days. How about the lunar cycle? Does anybody know how long that is?
A month.
What's a month? How many days?
30 days?
No, but almost. Does anybody else take a guess?
29.
Close, 29.5. Okay, let's talk about what is a species. Does anybody know what a species is? The human species, the canine species. How do you define a species?
Like a specific group of an animal.
What do they have in common? It's a reproductively isolated group whose progeny match them. They have sex together and they produce of their own kind. So the human species doesn't have sex with dogs and produce something between a dog and a human. Only can successfully be fertile with its own kind. That's a species. And what does it take for a species to survive, to reproduce? The answer is fertility. So we're going to talk about fertility cycles. And what is the life force? Does anybody know what the life force is? One word? Lust. That is the life force that drives the reproduction of species. So that's an important word to understand. It has great power and great danger. So it's a very powerful concept. And the next and final point is critical periods. All the songs you hear in the morning at 4 and 5 in the morning, they're mating calls, most of them, and they're calling each other. Come to my nest, come mate with me in the spring. And what happens is there's a critical period for the onset of a baby bird to learn its species-specific song. And if it doesn't learn its song, if it's isolated from its parents and from its song, it will never reproduce when it grows up. So there are critical periods that I learned about, and now I'm going to show you about the critical period for coitus in humans. And that's where we get to start with these studies. The first study I'm showing you is, it came out of 792 women who had records in a major infertility center at Penn. My mentor, Celso Garcia, who was one of the 3 who was credited with inventing the oral contraceptive that liberated women from unwanted pregnancies if they were willing to take the pill, was my mentor. And when he saw the initial data I had, he said he would take me on as a graduate student and help guide my research. And we co-authored a great many things together. So I was learning about critical periods, and he had a major infertility service at the University of Pennsylvania's gynecology department, where people who had been to their physicians in hopes of getting pregnant and couldn't came to him because his group was the specialist. And I suggested we look at when they started having sex because I had just learned about the birds. And he said, that's interesting, let's do it. We had a bunch of students who came in and went through. Every day we would take out piles of paper records, sit around desks, record the data of when each woman had recorded her first coital experience, at what age. And what we have here, let's go to the next table. This is the first table that you should look at. There were 792 women. 314 of those women had a diagnosis of primary infertility, meaning they had never been able to knowingly conceive a pregnancy. The 478 had not primary, and the mean age at first coitus was statistically significantly different between the 2 groups. The women in the primary infertility group had had a first coital experience at 20 and a half years old. The average first coital age at the time was way younger. These women had waited apparently past a critical period. That's what we were thinking. The next table breaks those groups into 6 different groups from no detectable pathology, there's 171 of them. Primary infertility, they can't find anything wrong, no detectable pathology. They had the oldest first coital age. The far right are routine gynecology patients. These would be people at the hospital at Penn or staff or faculty who said, this is a great physician, I want to use this group for regular routine gynecology. They had the youngest first coital age, and it was almost like a stepwise ladder. Let's go to the next table.